Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Lorenzo's space program, planting flags with me. We've planted the flag on Minmus in our previous episode. After quite a few mishaps, both recording wise and rocket wise, we have now planted our first flag on a celestial body. We have a lot of fuel back in the tank. We have a lot of fuel in the tank which we'll be needing to get back to our ship that we left in orbit, because this ship is not done yet. We are going on to the moon. Our ship in orbit here, the mothership, is our trusty vessel that we will use to get to the moon. We will be setting it as target because we will be needing to rendezvous with it. So first things first, let's lift off and get into orbit ourselves, because you cannot rendezvous on the surface. Well, you can, but that's also called a crash, and the other ship that doesn't have any landing gear also it does, but it will be needing it to use on the moon. So this ship will fly up, rendezvous with our trusty companion ship, transfer all its remaining fuel, and then be ditched and forgotten about forever. So Edbase, planter of the flags, yes, Edbase, planter of the flags, that's a good name. Prepare for liftoff. There we go. And I have done a catastrophic mistake. I have not checked in which direction we will be needing to go. Fortunately, I can just guess one. We are going in the other direction. We are going in this direction. And let's see if that's establishing orbit in any sort of reasonable fashion. No. We are now going... We should not be going in this direction, I don't think. No. We should, because the important thing, what I'm worrying about, is we have to orbit in the same direction as the ship we're rendezvousing with. Otherwise we can get into the same orbit, but we'll be just smashing into each other. We need to orbit in the same direction. So I'm going to point. I have no idea what I'm doing at this point, but I will be in the air for a little bit, which gives me time to sort this out. So I'm going to put a maneuver node here on top of our trajectory, which will allow me to, through trial and error, find out what we're doing and if we're going in even slightly the right way. Important bit, of course, is which way is this thing traveling. It is now gaining altitude, which means it's going in this way. I think, no, it's... You know what, I'm just going to switch to it. And look, this is a rookie mistake in any space program, that when you don't know the way your ship is traveling. It is losing altitude. Its lowest point is still ahead of it. So it's going in this direction. It's going counterclockwise. So we're going back to the mothership. And it will have to be going in a counterclockwise direction as well. Otherwise they are going to crash and burn in a horrible, horrible fashion. So let's have a look. This is going well. Yes, let's increase altitude. You see, you're noticing I'm not using the planned maneuver system as precisely as I could. I'm just putting it down to see what would happen were I to burn in any given direction. Now, what I'm going to do here is establish just any orbit, a low orbit inside this, and then I'm going to use the maneuver system to fine-tune it so that we will eventually rendezvous with it. The orbit I'm shooting for will be quite a lot smaller than this one, which is good because the period will be very different. One circle for me will I will circle Minmus many times in the time the Minmus does it once. This gives me a lot of opportunity to find the correct spot to alter my orbit. If you're at almost the same orbit and you're on, for example, the opposite side, you are going to be spending a lot of time catching up or slowing down. I hope this will become intuitively clear in a bit, because I don't know how to explain it very well. Basically, you need to match two circles that have a time component as well. Now that didn't make the explanation better. Anyway, just look at me while I do it, and hopefully you'll be able to repeat it, or at least understand it. I'm burning sideways now. Oh look, the flag gets a marker, the second triumph mark. Oh, stop. Look, this orbit is not even close to being the same as this one. But as I said, we don't care about it. We just want to have a orbit. Any old orbit will do. This method will work here with Minmus, because Minmus is very small, orbital speeds are low, and orbital changes therefore cost a low amount of fuel. If you are around Kerbin or a bigger body even, you want to be doing some advanced planning, because you're going to be wasting a lot of fuel if you do it in the way I'm doing now. I made a maneuver node, so I'm pointing it at the blue reticule, and then when these 15 minutes, the T-minus 15 minutes are over, I can do the burn, and then the trajectory will be like the maneuver planning node. This is a good bit about this maneuver node. So I explained this in the previous video. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch that, or watch a tutorial about it. If you want, I'll do a tutorial about it myself. So it's 3, 2, 1 minutes away. The text is hard to read here on the white Minmus, and let's do the burn, adding 60 meters per second to my speed. The ship is so small it makes maneuvering rather difficult. So we're not going for precision, we're just going for any old orbit, and this is definitely an orbit. So we have a periapsis of 14 kilometers, quite low, and an apoapsis of 66 kilometers. Now we're both in space, but we need to meet up. So we're going to set it as a target, and the first thing we want to do is make these planes. The blue one is mine, the yellow one is that of the target. They have to be in the same plane. They have to be rotated so that these are overlaid on each other. Because as you might imagine, even if I make them the same size, but they're like this, we're hardly ever going to meet. The game, once you set a target, gives you these indicators, the descending node and the ascending node. This is where the planes of these two circles, of these two orbits, overlap. You can see it. At these points, if you make a radial burn, which is away facing up or down from the circle, it will change your plane in such a way that it will become feasible, that you can align them with the target plane. Jesus, words are difficult. So, hypothetical maneuver again. I'm going to use the radial buttons this time. It's the red ones. And as you can see, when I plan this maneuver, the plane is changing. And of course, we need to change it in the right direction. And here the plane is almost the same. So we're going to have to we check our projected orbit. It's about 15 to 90. So we're going to do this first, and then we're going to see about meeting up with the target. So same thing, I'm going to make the plan. Now I'm going to find the maneuver node icon. This is this one here, pointing the ship in the right direction, time warping to the node point. This is in 30 minutes. You can see in real life, or if you're not using the time warp, orbital maneuvering is quite a patient process. You always need to wait until you're at exactly the right point to make your maneuver. Fortunately, we have time acceleration, and the weights are compressed to a manageable amount. We have to do it in 30 seconds, and we are getting dangerously close to the surface. If were it not for our knowledge of orbits, that we are not going to in fact crash into this surface, because we're moving fast enough. It's curving away from us faster than we are falling towards it. And at this small moon Minmus, this relatively slow speed of 160 meters per second is enough to accomplish this. So 2 seconds remaining, 2, 1, burning now. Adding the speed and shut it down. So now our orbits are more or less on the same plane. Look at that, great. Now we can start working on rendezvousing. What we need to do is expand this circle to be the same size as this one, and do it in such a way that not only the circles are the same size, but that we end up in the place where it is going to be. This is difficult, because if we just randomly expand the circle, we could end up on a different side and we will never ever meet. We are going to try and just guess a point and see how the game will help us. We are going to make an hypothetical maneuver and increase our orbit to the orbit of our target. Now we get these indicators. This means the target position at intersect. So we will be intersecting it here, and then our target will be here. So what we do now is we rotate this planned maneuver around the orbit, and you can see it gets larger because my orbit is not circular, nor is that of the target. That makes things difficult. So we are going to make it a smaller adjustment and do it from the other side. Here, look at what we get. Look at what we get. Basically, we just rotate this circle around until two of these icons are going to be close together. Then we're going to see if we can do anything to fine-tune it. is not going well. So we're not getting anything from here. What I'm going to do is make my orbit circular. That will make it easier. It can be done from this orbit, of course. You can do it from anywhere, but it's easier when your orbit is circular, because then the distance is the same from every bit of your orbit, and you can rotate it around easier. Also, it might not be possible from this point, but a few orbital periods later it might be, but I know of no way to calculate such things. Well, they surely exist. You can do it by trial and error, but it's easier to just make your orbit a bit different. Basically guess the first part of the maneuver and then try it again. The system of the game will help you, but it will not do it for you. So if we add 20 meters per second in 47 minutes, we will have a circular orbit. So we're going to time warp to that point. 30, 20, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. First a quick save, because that has been a while since the last quick save. And now burning, 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 burning. Stop it. So look at that. We have now a almost circular orbit. Stop it. 91 on the one side and 98 on the other side. That's as good as circular. The planes are almost the same, so we should be able to plan a rendezvous from here. We are going to do the same thing again. Make a hypothetical maneuver to the distance of the target orbit and rotate it around. You see the distances are far more alike now, and we see these points are going to be closer to each other. Now we increase the distance a little bit to here so that it even matches here. Drag them, please be closer. Oh, it vanished. The game is still in alpha, sometimes these things happen. And if we do this here, I magically did it almost perfectly immediately on the manyth try, we get a separation of 23 kilometers, which is very, very close. Especially with the low orbital speeds here, we can work with 23 kilometers. We can do that here. We can fidget with it, try and make it even closer. But 16 kilometers is definitely going to work. So, closest approach is 16 kilometers. We are going to do the same thing we did all the other times. Align the ship with the blue marker. Time warp forward until the time of the maneuver, which is 2 hours now. So again, very, very grateful for this time warp, because otherwise we would have to be making many, many different videos. So here, T plus 4 seconds. I just missed it, but we're only doing a burn of 20 meters per second, so that should probably work out. And I'm doing my best to keep aiming the ship in the right direction. Didn't have the patience to zero out its attitude, so now look at that. We've plotted an intersection, make the theoretical move. The actual separation is going to actually be 14 kilometers. This is amazing. This is great. Now we are going to leave this maneuver planning system behind and do the rest of the approach manually. And you'll see in a bit what I mean. First we're going to time warp, first we're going to quick save. First we're going to time warp to this approach. You see they are approaching each other. Doing this mathematically would have been very, very challenging for me at any rate. And doing this with the tool is a great, great help. You see we are very close now, and we are going to move to the flight scene here. And look, there it is. The nav ball has switched to target mode, and we are just going to point our ship at it. This is a method in like a low Kerbin orbit where you're going at 2000 meters per second. You need to be very much closer, for like about a kilometer, maybe 2 kilometers. Here with Minmus, it is far more feasible to just point towards the target. So now that the nav ball is in target relative mode, let me explain it again. The prograde vector now shows your vector relative to the target. So we're moving that way now. These purple markers, these pink markers, have become useful. This one now points directly at the target. So we're going to use this one and just basically be a dumb brawler and fly directly at the target. Let's use a speed of about 30 meters per second. Accelerating time again, and we can see we are getting closer, but you can also see we are not going straight at the target anymore. This is because we are of course still in orbit. Look, the orbits have changed a lot. We just happen to be close now, and the speeds are low enough that this doesn't matter. We can just pretend we're in flat space. We are rendezvousing with it. We can pretend it's a sea here. We can just fly to it. Any distortions we ignore, and we waste a low amount of fuel because the speeds are so low. Again, if you are in orbit around a bigger body, the orbital speeds are higher. You cannot do this. You will miss it. You might not even have enough rocket power to do it. So I'm again going to point at it, going to make the yellow reticule overlap with the pink one. This means I am flying straight at the target, because you know the yellow reticule is the vector relative to the target, and the pink one is the direction of the target. So if the yellow one is overlapping the pink one, you're heading straight for it. Be careful using this approach, because if you do it too recklessly, you are going to crash into it, which is a very bad idea. In fact, we have worked up 70 meters per second of speed into the target. This is far too fast for any sensible rendezvous. We are in a very tiny ship with a relatively powerful engine, so we can get away with it. But if you are docking tankers, massive interplanetary cruisers, you want to be keeping this speed very, very much lower. 10 meters per second will be plenty, because these ships, they don't turn around quickly. You don't have engines that will be able to control it precisely, and if you do it rashly, you will have a bad day. So we are getting close. I'm turned around now because we'll be needing to brake soon, because we see the enemy is only 1.6 kilometers away. This is really close. As you might notice, we have almost completed our rendezvous. I'm going to slow down a little bit. And what I could do now is just pop Edbase out of the capsule, move him over using his jetpack, and go into the other ship. This would be a perfectly valid way. Oh, slow down, slow down, slow down. This would be a perfectly valid way of getting him into the other ship. Absolutely. However, you might have noticed I've been going on about fuel a lot in the mission. Fuel in space is valuable, it's paramount, and you can see we have quite a bit of fuel still remaining. We can transfer that to the main ship if we manage to dock. So, popping in a quick save again, we're going to try and dock with this ship. So we can transfer the remaining fuel and use it to land on the moon. So, yes, let me turn around again and stop this ship. You can see we are getting fairly close. Activating the precision controls again, and now we have only 0.3 meters per second of relative velocity left. Now it's really low. And what we have to do now is select the docking port, set the docking port as target. The nav ball still works in the same way, and now we're going to have to go really careful with the throttle, because for a docking to happen we have to be moving at less than 0.5 meters per second of relative velocity. Now this is where RCS thrusters really shine, because we can only control our ship from the rear with the landing engines. We are going to have to keep turning it around a lot. This is a very small ship, so that's not a problem, but it will make things more difficult. If you have omnidirectional thrusters, everything is a lot easier. So we are approaching now at 0.4 meters per second, and I hope we're not going straight in, but I hope this will be close enough for the docking clamps to engage. So look, we're closing the distance, going rather recklessly quick, and ooh, the strong magnets. Again, here you can notice that the game makes it a little bit easier than it would in real life. But the docking clamps are doing their job. Hopefully they're doing their job. And you can see the nav ball going nuts, because both me and the target is moving around a lot. And here we are. We have docked. So, the flag is safely on Minmus. We are in orbit with our moon vessel stage, and everything is going swimmingly. First things first, we're going to have to get the fuel out of this rocket. No! Ooh, used the wrong button and lit the engines, both of the engines, and they were pushing against each other, and that just worked. This could have blown up the entire ship, but I should have pressed the Alt key instead of the Shift key. My mistake. Sometimes a pilot stumbles over his controls. So we're going to put the fuel from the Minmus stage into the center tank that had emptied previously because it has the big engine. Now the Minmus stage is completely empty, very useless, and only has Edbase, our flag planter, in it. So he is going to move over to the Minmus, to the moon stage again, and after that the Minmus stage will have done its job and can be safely and happily discarded. So grab the ladder and board it, please. Great. So now we're going to decouple the Minmus stage. We don't need to bring it with us anymore. It has done a good job, but now it's just dead weight. So that is going to remain here in orbit. Interestingly, if someone else ever wants to go to Minmus, they only need to bring some fuel, because this one will be in orbit here. You need to rendezvous with this, pump a bit of fuel in it, and you can go and land. This will stay here. Now, looking at this rocket, it's going to transfer to the moon. We have a full tank of fuel here. This is going to be used to fly back to Kerbin from the moon. We have a rather full tank of fuel here. These will be used as these will just be used as engines here to get to the moon. This center tank is almost empty. This will be our big moon descent stage, because we'll be needing some thrust to slow us down. The moon is quite a bit bigger than Minmus. So what we are going to do is transfer the fuel from the landing stage, or from the escape stage back to Kerbin, transfer it into the landing stage. We will be needing this fuel to get back to Kerbin, but first we'll be needing it to land on the moon. If we did miscalculate, well, I didn't calculate at all, but if we didn't bring enough fuel, it's still better to land on the moon and then not be able to get back than to crash while having a lot of fuel to get back. You get what I mean. You first want to survive, then you want to worry about getting back. Also, transferring this fuel down makes the rocket, makes the center of gravity lower, which is nice to have when landing, because this is quite a tall rocket, and when landing it, it's nice to have the bottom be heavier than the top, otherwise it will keep falling over. Right, here we see the Minmus stage discarded. It's dead now, it's got nothing in it, and we have a fully fueled moon stage ready to depart this orbit and make its way to the moon. This will happen in the next part. I'm going to have a break now, grab some breakfast, and make the rest of the videos later. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know what you think about my space program. See you guys later. This was Lorenzo. Goodbye.